Welcome back everyone, and as always I'm really glad that you could join me today. Now this video is an update to my previous one where I told you the strange and convoluted story of how one man tried to steal the estate of the late Andrew Hopkinson, an ex-BBC visual effects technician. To carry out this ludicrous caper, this man forged Andrew's will so that he could illegally claim the house, the land on which it sat, plus all of Andrew's personal property, which included a vast collection of original film and television memorabilia, ranging from screen-used props, models and costumes, to scripts, archive material and moulds, to name but a few. In total, this was conservatively valued at just over £1 million, so it was a fraud on a massive scale. I also explained how there was then an attack on me as an act of revenge for my part in uncovering and revealing this crime, where a beneficiary of the fraudster then tried to ruin me financially by stealing away my business and thus preventing me from being able to make a living to support my family. If you're new here, then I'd highly recommend that you go and watch that first video, because none of what I'm about to tell you here will make any sense otherwise. Go on, go and check it out, then come back here and I'll tell you all the rest. It's okay, we can wait. Go on, off you go. Give them a moment. Right, you're back, all caught up now, you ready? Excellent. So now that we're all here, let's get started, as something quite significant has happened since the last upload. Before we get started on the updates of what's happened since my last upload, I just want to do a little bit of housekeeping first. For me, that video was a massive success because it drew in quite the audience, as I knew it would. Drama is always peak viewing here on the internet. In just 4 short weeks, it gained over 36,000 unique views, it peaked 4 times, which is highly unusual for my channel, brought in over 1,000 new subscribers, and it received nearly 2,000 likes and over 900 comments. The support from those of you here on YouTube and elsewhere has been truly overwhelming, and I sincerely thank you all from the very bottom of my heart. You've really G'd me up here when I was at my lowest ebb. Lastly, a special mention of my gratitude must go to those kind people who generously donated a super thanks to help keep things going here, as well as to those of you who kindly offered me support in other ways. I am deeply thankful to all of you, and I am forever in your debt. In the weeks since I published that video, and given what I said within it, you'd expect there to be some level of resistance from the people that I pointed the finger at. Now admittedly, I didn't mention them by name, but if you are part of that particular fan circle, then you'd be more than likely able to work out who I was talking about. Obviously Person A is no longer with us, so we can understand and forgive his silence on the issue, but weirdly, not one of his friends came to defend his honour. The cosplay solicitor has been rather oddly quiet on the matter, going as far as to lock down her social media pages, which up to now had been open to the wider public with an array of posts about a frankly dull and tedious life. Is this lockdown a sign of a guilty conscience perhaps? Embarrassment at being caught out? Unimaginable dread at the thought of what is most certainly coming her way? Who knows, and to be perfectly honest, who cares, because I certainly don't. And then we come to Person B, my ex-friend. The man, if we can even call him that, who betrayed me and acted in the manner of a 1920s mafioso boss, where he tried to destroy my business and extort me for his own twisted pleasure. I don't think that I'll ever get to know what the true motivations behind his actions were, but I can certainly guess that his greed for illicitly gained screen-use props and models from a crappy 1970s science fiction show was, in the balance of all probability, a deciding factor here. Now, it's very easy to play the big man and make lots of threatening noises, but if you can't back that up with substantial actions, then it really does show just how tepid, shallow and superficial you really are. As the old saying goes, talk is cheap. With him, he's less Tony Soprano and more Gio Compario from the Go Compare adverts. Do you know that despite all his demands, the blackmail and the harm that he's caused to me personally, rather interestingly, he's made no attempt to address any of my claims or defend himself in any way, shape or form, both publicly or privately. It's been a complete and total radio silence on that score. Oh, and I still haven't even heard from his solicitor that he threatened me with on the 4th of July 2024 either. No, it's almost as if he committed to the deed only insofar as to lobbing that incendiary device in my general direction, then running away and taking cover while it went off, leaving me to deal with the fallout, while he claimed to buggery with the consequences. It's almost as if he thinks that by not addressing the elephant in the room, then maybe it'll just all go away and that people will conveniently forget about it, leaving him free to pick up from where he left off after laying low for a while. Unfortunately for him, it hasn't gone that way at all, and his inactions speak volumes to me, as I hope it does to you too. It certainly has to those around him. Put it this way, everyone of note now knows what he and his now very silent co-conspirators were up to, as I've had several people, including Person B's own friends, come to me privately and tell me about how disgusted they are by his behaviour and how they wish to now distance themselves from him and his criminal cohorts. Let's just say that many doors, both professional and social, have now been closed on this group, a group who are also coincidentally heavily involved in the administration and running of a Blake 7 fan club called Maximum Power, otherwise known as Team Blake when they're out on the convention circuit. Oh, and by the way, this group also includes Person C, our little friend from the southwest, who up to now I have not mentioned before because of his ongoing denial of having any knowledge of the fraud. If he was that innocent, then why did he block Dan O'Keefe on every platform when Dan was trying to warn him about what was going on, just as I did with Person B? Here is a recently acquired screenshot of a conversation from the 23rd of August 2021 between Person A and a collector that directly references Person C's involvement at such an early stage. You'll also note that during this period, negotiations with a well-known specialist prop dealer were being held to purchase, among other things, a screen-used escape pod miniature from Andrew Hopkinson's collection, the same one that this collector was also being offered. To put this into perspective, this particular segment of the conversation happened just 48 days, or in other words, 1 day shy of 7 weeks after Andrew's death, and 3 months before the illegitimately gained probate had been awarded, which at worst makes this a criminal activity, and at best shows just how naive all concerned were. Anyway, this new piece of evidence, and a detailed list of all the items that Person C was given from the Hopkins estate by Person A, has now been handed over to the solicitors as part of their information gathering to build their case against these individuals. In a bit of a twist of the story, video footage taken at a Blake 7 fan event held in Oxford just days after Person A's death shows Person C openly laying claim to a filming miniature that he now miraculously seemed to own. The point of contention here is that there is proof that Person A never managed to resell this model, known as the FT7, after he was forced to buy it back from the previously mentioned prop dealer for £6,000, an amount that was significantly higher than what he'd sold it to them for. What happened here is that the deal between Person A and the prop dealer went south when it came to light that a number of the items sold as part of this package didn't actually belong to Andrew in the first place, and the original owners found out about it, came forward and claimed their property back, thus putting the dealer out of pocket. So how does Person C now come to have this model? Is it an ironic case of history repeating itself, where he just took it from Person A's estate without permission, just as Person A took it from the Hopkinson estate back in 2021? Maybe there really is no honour amongst thieves after all. When I published my original video on the 23rd of October 2024, the main aim of it was to get the word out about the fraud and to set the record straight regarding the accusations that were directed at myself and Dan, as well as to explain what further happened to me as a result. Never in my wildest dreams did I ever think that I'd actually receive any help as a result of this, but I did kind of hope that it might point me in the right direction, or at the very least bring my plight to the attention of someone who could potentially advise me. And that's exactly what happened a mere 11 days later when I received this DM via Facebook on Sunday the 3rd of November. To my utter surprise, James Hilsdon, a director and partner of the London-based solicitors firm Valemus Law, very generously offered me his legal services after having viewed my video when it was recommended to him in his YouTube feed. So disgusted was he at the circumstances detailed within that video that he immediately arranged a phone meeting for the following Tuesday to strike while the iron was still hot. I have to admit that this initial contact lifted such a great weight from my shoulders that I was practically walking on air as a result of it. Finally, there was hope after a year and a half of total and utter despair where I'd pretty much reached rock bottom. On that Tuesday, I spent about an hour and 20 minutes going into every detail with James, including elements that I'd not covered in the previous video. As a result of this, both he and his partners were of the opinion that given the irrefutable evidence that I provided, I clearly had a very strong case against Person B, not just for his misrepresentation and the passing off of the PB Props brand, but also for the harassment that I'd had to endure as well. This therefore placed me in the perfect position to receive a significant package of damages for not only the loss of my income, but also for the stress and the mental anguish that it caused me and to my family over that period. With that, I officially engaged Valemus Law to represent me, but now we had to discuss a plan of action. I only had 3 requirements that I wanted to achieve here. The first was, while I wasn't overly bothered about the limited company, as my original plan was to officially trade in a slightly different capacity, but I didn't really want person B to have this either, as that would always be a painful reminder of his actions hanging over me. Plus, if any potential clients would look me up on the internet, it's more than likely that this company would appear first in the search results and cause further confusion for my business. Additionally, and what was really important here, was that PB Props and Models Limited owned the PB Props trademark, and that was the part that I was most interested in gaining control over. The reason being was that because without it, I would potentially be open to legal complications in the future. The second requirement was very straightforward. I just wanted the 2 web domains signed over to me. Thirdly, and most importantly, what I really wanted was for person B to be completely removed from my life, so that I could move on and never have to think about him ever again. It's that simple. Everyone who I've spoken to about this situation has said that given what person B has done, they would absolutely want to take him to the cleaners and utterly destroy him. But I'm not so keen. Yes, it's true that I could seriously do with a sizable monetary compensation package that was calculated, and it was extremely tempting. But my aim here was not to ruin him financially, despite the deplorable things that he'd done to me and my family. To be honest though, he probably does deserve to be put under that type of hardship, but I'm just not that sort of person. Sure, we can needle him with a sternly worded legal letter and make him sweat a little, but anything beyond that is totally out of the question as far as I'm concerned. He just needed to learn that his actions do indeed have consequences. Now, I am aware that this may sound like complete and utter madness to you, but I do have my principles, and besides, I know what's coming down the line for him in relation to that fraud case. So with the aid of James Hilsdon and Valemus Law, accomplishing these 3 requirements via that initial engagement letter was our sole aim, but it was a bit of a gamble and could come at a cost. In the highly unlikely event that person B didn't capitulate, then the prospect of a potential court case would loom large on the horizon. I was convinced that it was too gutless to let it get that far, but if it did, then I certainly would be forced to see it through to its natural conclusion and take him to the cleaners for that substantial amount of damages. Suddenly, everything was now all too real, but James was very understanding, and he walked me through all the possibilities, which did set my mind at ease and gave me a much-needed boost to my confidence. At the end of the day, though, James said that he'd deal with the case, and so I left it in his very capable hands. Having said that, I did let it be known through the grapevine that I'd employed a very scary firm of London solicitors and was coming after person B, as I knew that this information would eventually filter its way back to him and give him something to seriously fret about and worry over. I wasn't pissing about here like he did with his idle threats. I actually meant it. And it worked. "5 days after my phone call with James Hilsdon, coincidentally and completely unconnected to the fact that by now it was common knowledge that I'd employed a very scary London law firm to come after person B, I was unblocked on WhatsApp, where I then received a message from person B at 3 minutes to midnight on Sunday, November the 10th. Obviously by this time of night I was snugly tucked up in bed and fast asleep, so I didn't get to read it until the following morning. Person B had now had a miraculous change of heart and spoke to me in a fashion as if everything was quite normal between us.
Oh, hi Anthony. I have no further use for the PB Props company and trademark, and I'm planning on dissolving/disposing of them and giving up the domain names. Unless you want them, I should be able to transfer the lot to you if you want. No charge, no conditions. I believe the legal term is without prejudice. Please let me know whether or not you are interested. ASAP. Regards. Person B. Oh,
how very magnanimous of him. I wonder what prompted all this then. I then sent this information on to James, and we discussed how this was a good sign in that we already had him worried, but the engagement letter would now have to be slightly adjusted to accommodate this new information. Given that I wanted all the negotiations to go through Valemus Law, as I really wanted nothing further to do with person B, I politely replied with,
B, I appreciate this and I will respond shortly. Thanks.
Over the next few days, James drafted his letter to person B, but then I received yet another communique from my ex-friend. You can pause the video and read it for yourself, but you can see how it was written in a quite a friendly manner, which is completely at odds to how he'd treated me over the last year and a half with his utter contempt and disdain. By now, I just about had enough of this pretense, and so I requested that he deal with all this through my solicitor, who, as a coincidence would have it, would be engaging with him officially later that very day. This was the first time that I had directly confirmed to Person B that I really was taking this matter seriously, and seriously enough to engage the services of a law firm. Sure enough though, just as I'd warned him, Person B received the email and the letter from my solicitor not long after this exchange. While James acknowledged in this letter that Person B was now willing to settle the matter amicably, thus circumventing the need to go through litigation, he did spell out very clearly the legal position that Person B now found himself in. Person B had demonstrated through his actions that he had unequivocally registered PB Props and Models as a limited company, taken out the trademark and registered the domain names with malicious intent as an act of sabotage to ruin my business and cause me great financial harm. In addition to that, he'd also threatened me with extortion. All this and more meant that he'd met and exceeded the threshold for two factors. First, intentional passing off by misrepresentation, which is to mislead the public regarding, in this case, PB Props and Models as a brand, thus causing harm to the goodwill that my business had built up over the years. And secondly, 2 counts of criminal harassment in relation to his course of conduct. Because of this, I was now legally entitled to the following remedies from him. 1. An order for the dissolution or transfer of the company. 2. An order for the assignment of the trademark to me. 3. An order for the transfer of all the domain names. 4. Significant damages for passing off, which caused the loss of my income, as well as aggravated and exemplary damages. 5. Damages for harassment, including stress, anxiety, and financial loss. 6. Interest payments for the financial losses. 7. All my costs to be recovered from the moment of his campaign where it started to now. Now, given that I just wanted my life back and that I'm not really interested in the damages unless I'm forced to do so through the court system, we would privately settle for the first 3 orders, plus a nominal payment to represent token damages that would help towards the legal costs so far. This obviously had the desired effect. Person B immediately folded at this and capitulated instantly with no argument or dispute. In a clear sign of his own guilty conscience, he didn't even say that he'd do this under duress or even ask for me to take down my video. No, he simply dropped his trousers, bent over, and took it like the newly arrived prison bitch that he is. He knew his actions were unjustified and wrong, and that he had no excuse for his unwarranted and mean-spirited betrayal of our long-standing friendship. But rather than own up and apologise, what he did next was tragically pathetic. Remember how I said in the original video that after everything he's done, that he couldn't possibly sink any lower? Well, he managed that in quite the spectacular fashion when he replied to my solicitor for the first time. After agreeing to our terms, he went on to say this.
Oh, do I arrange these transfers with you or directly with your client? I would prefer to arrange everything with you. I wish no further direct contact with your client in case of any misunderstandings, as there have been in the past. He has caused my wife, who is a wheelchair user, considerable distress due to his lack of understanding towards a disability, basically treating her as a second-class citizen and not worthy of his attention.
So first of all, the absolute tool changed his tune to the fact that he now no longer wished to deal with me directly due to some fictional misunderstandings in the past, despite the fact that he was more than happy to do so, as illustrated in his text from earlier on. Recall his smarmy and chummy olive branch-laden statements of "without prejudice" and "hope that's okay and I trust all is well with you," as well as him signing off each time with his "regards." Yeah, well, that's not really the type of language that you use when you don't want to deal with someone. Quite the opposite, in fact. He also seems to have conveniently forgotten that it was actually me who'd already made it abundantly clear that I wanted all communications from him to be exclusively directed through my solicitor. Look, it's painfully apparent that these out-of-the-blue friendly texts were instigated as a fearful, knee-jerk reaction to the fact that, through the grapevine, he'd already heard that I'd engaged a law firm to come after him. It's that obvious. He's played himself like a grade A fool here. I'll give him that it was probably a clumsy attempt to get on my good side, hoping that I'd just make it all go away. But I'm not stupid. I can see what he's doing. Unfortunately for him, though, that was wishful thinking on his part because, just like Thanos, what was coming for him was inevitable. To make matters even worse for himself, quite moronically, further into his reply, he went on to defame me, to my own solicitor no less, and used his disabled wheelchair-bound wife as a prop in the process, where he claimed that I treated her as a second-class citizen. This statement in itself would be monstrously shocking if not for the laughable sheer absurdity of all, as anyone who knows me will know that this is an absolute out-and-out lie. I think person B fails to recall that my own father was disabled in a horrific work accident when I was a child, and that he spent the last years of his life in a wheelchair. There is absolutely no way that I treat anyone as a second-class citizen, no matter who they are, and he knows it. As far as I'm concerned, this is just a childish tactic tossed out as a failing last resort to try and put me in a bad light, or framing himself as the caring and doting husband who couldn't possibly do any wrong. He may also like to reflect on the fact that when he had his stroke, I was the first person that his wife called at 5 o'clock in the morning, I might add, where I immediately offered my help and spoke to her at length for several hours over the coming days and weeks to further support her. If I were to have treated her as a second-class citizen, then I clearly wouldn't have given her the time of day in this instance. Anyway, we all agree that this was just him trying to have a final pop at me to try and save face because he knew he'd lost the battle and that his fragile ego was badly fractured as a result. He just simply doesn't seem to be able to help himself as he continues to dig his own grave deeper and deeper. Even his own close friend said that this was a bit of a dick move on his part, which really made him look incredibly stupid and desperate. Yeah, I shared his reply with all his friends as well. Actually, thinking about it, maybe I should have added libel to the charge sheet as well. Oh well, never mind. So the good news is that within just 4 days of person B receiving the very scary legal letter from my solicitor, which James said was him actually being nice, I took ownership of the company, the domain names, and most importantly of all, the trademark, as well as receiving some financial compensation, of which a portion went reasonably to Valemus Law for their costs. Everything is therefore back to normal now, and I'd like to say that I couldn't be happier, which I am, but I'm still left with one major question. Why did this even have to happen in the first place? What I simply cannot quantify is why a friend, a good friend, and a close one at that, who was the best man at my wedding just as I was at his, would do something like this. I didn't do anything to him to even remotely warrant these actions, and I fervently believe that I have made it absolutely crystal clear through the indisputable evidence that I presented previously that whatever he thinks I've done, that I am more than completely innocent of. The truth of the matter is that he betrayed me for reasons unfathomable and backstabbed me in the process, so I'm left perplexed and saddened by the whole affair with many, many further questions that are just too depressing to contemplate. This entire saga has left a bitter taste in my mouth, dented my confidence and dulled my desire and interest to carry on with this channel and my business. But I know all this will pass, though I do feel that there is a long road to recovery ahead of me here. In the meantime, however, I do wish to extend my heartfelt gratitude to James Hilsdon and Valemus Law for giving me my life back, as well as for restoring a sense of peace and calm and well-being to my family, after all the heartache that we've been put through. James was extremely professional and understanding throughout this entire whole ordeal, and I cannot recommend his services highly enough. James, to you, I personally say thank you. I am forever in your debt. Well, I think here is as good a place as any to end this video, especially as we come to the conclusion of this side of the story, but I do feel that the chronicle will continue, especially as the will fraud and stolen property issue is yet to be resolved. Looking ahead, 2025 is a new year, so it's fitting to turn over a new leaf and make a fresh start. Until then, thanks ever so much for watching, take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video where hopefully normal service will resume. Bye for now then.